Hi and welcome to North Lanarkshire Council's online visual arts programme. My name's Jasmine and I'll be your tutor for the next 4 weeks. With these longer, brighter days of spring, we're going to be following the theme of Blast into Nature. So we've got some great ideas to share with you, so let's get some messy clothes on and let's get started. Now this week we're going to be focusing on summer wreaths. There's lots of different ways that you can make summer wreaths, so I'm going to show you 2 different ways this week. So for this exercise, you'll need some found materials that you can find on a walk around a park or in your garden. I've got some nice leafy things that we could use, like ferns and branches with leaves, just for some nice green foliage on our wreath to make it nice and decorative. There's also some lovely flowers out just now, just in the last couple of weeks I've started to notice them, so I've just picked a few of them. We'll also need some string to tie around our wreath and to hang it, a pair of scissors, a stapler, a scalpel, a cutting mat, a pen, and if you'd like to make a paper wreath, then some sugar paper or coloured card would be good, and we'll staple that on once we've cut it. Some tape would also be great, just to tape your, I've just used some brown tape, but just to tape it on at the back of the wreath and make sure your string doesn't jiggle about. So for the warm-up exercise this week, we're going to be using our sketchbook from last week. If you've not got it, that's totally fine. You can use some paper, but I'm going to just use this sketchbook just to keep everything together. So we're going to be drawing some shapes for our leaves just to get ourselves familiar about what we'll be cutting. I tend to just go in straight with scissors. It's a bit easier and it doesn't take as much time, but if you want to draw out your leaf shapes first, then please feel free. It might make things a little bit more exact. So you can see that I've got lots of different shapes here, but I tend to just follow the rule with wreaths that you'll need a variety of shapes and sizes. So I'll probably just start with a stem with some leaves on it. And you can see how something like this might be able to be cut out of paper if you folded it in half, as it's pretty much symmetrical. You could maybe do some just solitary leaf shapes and give it a little stem to keep it almost realistic. And if you're cutting your bits of paper out individually, you can give your leaves that sort of nice organic shape. So you can see that I've got some bits and bobs that are a bit more irregular, so even like you could maybe say it's a bit of a pine cone shape or something like that. Just to give your wreath a bit of variety, because you'll want to be folding your bits of paper back and forth and try and give it a little bit of movement. So you just want to give yourself as much opportunity for that as possible with the length and the shapes and the different branches that you're making. So you can see I've got lots of different other shapes here. There's lots of different things that you can be doing. And it's totally up to you as well, it's your wreath. So you can see that there's just lots of different things to choose from. Alright, so if you feel like you've drawn enough and you've kind of gotten an idea of what you'd like to do, then you can put your sketchbook to one side. And I'll show you what we'll be doing in terms of a template for this wreath. So this is just cut out of a cardboard envelope that I got through the post. I tend to keep a lot of stuff now just to see what would work for classes. I think it's good to keep bits and bobs of recycled stuff because you can always make it into something. So this was just an envelope. I think I got art materials in the post. And I've cut this shape out. So it's almost a dinner plate size. You could always draw around one or just freehand it. It really doesn't, it's all going to be covered, so it really doesn't matter if it's a completely perfect circle. Mine certainly isn't. So just try your best to get it into a circle shape that you like, and cut it out into a shape like this. Now, this doesn't need any string wound around it because we're just going to be stapling on our leaf shapes. So I'll show you what you could do in terms of cutting this out. So I'm just going to cut a smaller one out of this big leaf shape to give you an idea. So this is just a craft knife, and I would just cut out a shape like that. If you want to draw it first, that's totally fine. but I would just say those even could be two nice shapes that we could use later together. Now, I've cut out all of these shapes with either scissors or a craft knife, but it is totally up to you what you'd like to do. I'll show you. I'll just take a bit out of my sketchbook. What you could do if you fold your paper. So, if you fold your paper, it maybe sounds obvious, but you can make more shapes at once. So, I'm just going to cut a little twig shape like the one that I drew in my sketchbook. A few leaves. It doesn't matter if it's exact. A nice bud on the end. Some more leaves. Alright, and you can see that you've got two, and you can just pull them apart. Now, because we're going to be putting it on our wreath and we want it to look a little bit 3D, I would say that we could just fold it, just pinch it with your fingers, and sort of give it that nice shape. And we can do that with the bigger leaves as well. You can always use your craft knife at the back, the sort of other side of your craft knife, to make an indent in your paper if you like. I'll show you how you do that on these leaves. So you would normally use this sharp edge. We could use this side instead, and just lightly score the leaf. And then you can see how that becomes a much sharper fold, and that'll stay like that for a bit longer. So you can use that on your wreath. Alright. And if you're using these craft knives for a bit longer than maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you're really going at it with different layers of paper and things, then you might need to change your blade. But if you get one from any good art shop, they'll tend to supply those different blades. So I'm just going to show you how I would attach these onto this template that I've got. So I've already done one side. To be honest, I think it looks all right with just half of it done, and I think if you wanted that and you had some nice card as your backdrop, you could leave it like that, but if you want to do the whole thing, then I'll show you how to do that. So normally I'd start with quite big shapes, just to start covering up that background. Take the stapler. You don't have to put in loads of staples because it's quite good to leave a little bit of a gap to slot other leaves in. So maybe go on to one of these thinner spindly ones and just slot that in there. You might not even need to staple them all on because they're kind of attached to each other. So it's really up to yourself how you go about this. I just quite like to try and use a few different colours and try and disperse them evenly so that you've not got a big clump of the same colour in one space. So just put a few more of these on so you can get an idea. So maybe if you just decide where you want it, you can wind your leaves round like you would with a normal with a real plant. You don't actually need to even staple that one on. Give that a wee fold. And you can see how you would keep going until you had a full wreath. So that's your paper one. And you can tie a little bit of string around the top there and just put a little bit of tape on the back to secure it. And then you'll be able to hang that from wherever you like. And you can always use some nicer string than that. This is just sort of cheap string. But if you had some nice ribbon or something like that, because this will probably go inside, then you could use that. For the natural wreath, it's a little bit more complicated. It's entirely up to yourself if you want to attempt it or not. So this is the same shape, just cut out of corrugated cardboard. Again, something we've got a lot of right now from online orders. So what I've done with this is I've just wrapped some string around the whole thing. So I'm just going to quickly show you how you would go about that. So I've got this massive amount of string here, but it's quite handy because it comes on a spool already. So you just want to tie it around one side, put a little knot, and that can be the back of your wreath if you like, and then you just want to pass it through all the way around. It might be easier if it's a bit tighter around. You want to keep it relatively close together, just to make sure that when you're slotting in your natural materials, they'll stay put, and you'll have quite a lot of choice about where you want them to go. So just quite tightly pull it around. You don't want your string to be hanging off, or else it sort of defeats the purpose of holding your stuff in place. I tend to find with the corrugated cardboard it's a lot easier to keep the string where it is, because the materials will sort of mush into the string, because there's a few different layers and it is a little bit more squishy than your just average card. So when you get to this end, pull it a little bit tight and then go back in the other direction and you'll have a crisscross. You don't have to do this much, but I think it does work a lot more effectively than just one way round. So you go clockwise and then anti-clockwise, I suppose. You snip your string and just tie that either onto your knot or onto the string closest by. There you go. We'll snip that off. And then if you want to take a longer bit, we can make your loop at the top here. So I would tie it at the back, or tie it at the top, sorry, actually, so that it hangs a little bit nicer. I'm actually going to make this my front now because I think I don't want all of this stuff, all the stickers poking through. Tie it at the top, then tie another knot a little bit higher up to form your loop. And if you want to, you can make a little bow as well, if you fancy. So that's your base. I've got a much more laboriously wound one here just to show you, just to get an idea of how much you could really do if you're wanting to use lots of little bits and bobs on it, lots of little twigs. So this is my half finished one, and I'm just going to show you what I would do to finish it. So I'm just going to use a different combination of materials. I quite like these big branches because they have so much width to them and they really cover the string. We're just going to wind them in. And it's quite an intuitive thing putting these in. You'll just kind of put them where you think, and you can always take them out and move them about if they don't look right. You can see that you could just keep going and going and going. It could be an afternoon spent well. So once you've got all of your greenery on there and you're quite happy with where it's all sitting, then you can add flowers if you've got them. I'd suggest putting them in last because they'll be the first things to start to droop, so you'll want to replace them the most. Once they're in, I would just nip off the ends. And you can see how you could just keep going. So these are your summer wreaths. I hope you've managed to make something that you're proud of. And that's been our lesson today, so thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.